Okay, so this is what goes inside of a tubed meal. Today we're having bacon and eggs. There's broccoli with a little bit of nutritional yeast and garlic butter. He has some Greek yogurt with walnuts on it, and a salad with some leafy greens, radishes, pepper, and carrots. And so I'll just toss that all in the blender. Oh, it's got some oil on it too. So I'll toss it all in the blender, and that will be what he eats for the day. It's about 1,200 calories and 40 grams of protein. And everything goes into our fantastic Blendtec blender, making it perfectly smooth. I'll just strain it out a little bit and go ahead and put it into the bag. So this week is Gtube Awareness Week, and I had kind of planned on switching out the Gtube and taping that, but then I forgot. So instead, we'll show the process of the tube and the bag and all that stuff while I get the feed ready for nighttime. Right now, I actually have him hooked up to, this is basically, it's called a Ferrel bag. It allows gas and any kind of like residual stomach contents, mucus, and that kind of stuff to drain out, and you can kind of run them simultaneously, or you can do what I usually do, which is toss it on the floor and let gravity sort of pull out any like weird little stuff, just to make sure that, you know, before I give medicine or anything else, that he doesn't have a belly full of like snot or whatever. So one of the main things that that are as a result of the lissencephaly is something called oral motor dyspraxia, which is kind of a fancy term for an inability to control all the oral muscles. So you end up essentially with food going down the wrong pipe because it's hard to control your swallowing and your breathing and all this kind of stuff. So usually they get the Gtube pretty much right away. But of course I didn't want to do that, and I waited and I waited, and I felt like I was, I don't know, giving in. I think we all kind of have this food is love concept. And it took till he was about 11 months old. I used food thickener and that kind of stuff to like still feed with a bottle. And then when he was about 11 months old, I was on my way home from the developmental pediatrician after she tried to convince me to put the feeding tube in. And I was like, yeah, maybe, I'll think about it, blah, blah, blah. So we're in the car driving, and all of a sudden I choked. And I'm coughing, and I'm sputtering, and I had to pull over. I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't do anything. I was in this state of panic, and I realized that I do this to him 5+ times a day, and I make him do this just because I'm an asshole, no better reason, right? And so the second I walked through the door, I went ahead and I booked the surgical consult, and 45 minutes later, the Gtube was placed, and as soon as we got home, it's, you know, very short surgery. They just cut a little hole, they put one little stitch in, and it's essentially kind of like almost like an earring hole, except for it heals up even faster because there's more blood that goes to the site. 24 hours later, we were back at home, and I went to give him his little parades and his food, and he shook his head and he looked at me like I was crazy, and he pointed at the tube, and I thought, God, that's so weird. No, you don't understand. We'll just put liquid in the tube, and Mommy's going to put the food into, you know, your mouth. And he just shook his head, and he lifted up his shirt and he pointed right at this tube and was like, nah, lady, like, these people put this food in here, you put it in here. And he just like had his shirt up and he went to sleep, and that's how we fed him ever since. So ultimately it'll end up being in the bag, and that's the end result of the fantastic blender. I cannot recommend the Blendtec highly enough. It's true to all of their Can It Blend commercials, and I'll go ahead and put like one of those. So now let's take a look at what the tube actually looks like. So this is basically it. And this one's actually an old one that I took out of him, but I keep it so that we have a spare. And you saw how it was sitting before. So basically, this little area there where it says balloon, you inflate it with water. And you can see the balloon is inflated, and that holds it in place. And the stomach forms like a track between the abdominal wall and the stomach within, I would say, probably 24, 48 hours. It's a very, very short amount of time. So if for some reason this balloon would rupture, you need to immediately have another one in there, because otherwise you basically have to go back into surgery and have them open it up again. So when you get ready to do the feed, you hook this extension up. And there you can see it's a 14 French, so that actually makes it smaller than the gauge of most people's, well, I mean, obviously if you have an earring it's smaller than that, but this is considerably smaller than a plug. I mean, the balloon end of it is the size of a lot of people's plugs. So anyhow, you attach the extension like this. And then this is going to make a mess, so let me put this right here. When you inject the food in, it goes through the tube and directly into the stomach. And that's it. It's that easy. So what I would say is that food isn't love. Love is love. And if you are an alcoholic, or you're an anorexic, or you're obese, or you're diabetic, or any number of reasons why you physically or psychologically struggle with food, then it's not love. It's just torture. And this is one of the things that I've been able to do to keep my son very healthy and to make both of our lives considerably easier. And I don't regret even for 1 minute having done it. So if I could say anything to the new parents who don't want to get it done, think of it as this. This is the one thing that you can control. It's really difficult to control anything as a parent, and definitely in this special needs parent world. But this one thing you can. You can control the food that you put in. You know exactly how much food, how much water. You can give medicine while they're sleeping. It doesn't have to be delicious food. You don't have to be a good cook. But it can be really nutritious food, and you can alter it to be exactly what you want it to be and have just the right amount of nutrients and the right amount of calories, and make it anything you want it to be. And so I'll do a whole separate one on ketogenic diet, but I just wanted to, show a little bit about the feed. Thanks.